Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Yeah, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. I can't tell you how delighted I am to be with you today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Call in line if you'd like to call us is 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Listen line 605-477-3249. And even if you find us on the internet or on YouTube or a rebroadcast, that listen line is still running 24 hours a day. So even if this happens to be a delayed broadcast for you and you're listening weeks later, you can still call in and listen to the current listen line, 605-477-3249. Captain John Regan is with us. Welcome, Captain John Regan.
Good morning, Vincent.
John, it's great to hear your voice. You know, let me just start off the broadcast this way. I had a chance to chat with John Statmiller, and had a chance to chat with Miles, and I've had a chance to chat with Norm Shealy, and I've had a chance to chat with a number of our, instructors, and I've told them all the same thing, our very close instructors, that I love them. John, I love you, and I just want to tell you, it's not a thing. I mean it. I mean it's true love. You're a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. I just wanted to share that publicly. That I am the most fortunate man on the planet. I have the most wonderful, wonderful friends and an extended family. And there it is. There it is. And I mentioned to Nathan, our engineer, who's been with us for quite a long time, just on top of his game all the time. So there you go. So, John, how are you?
Well, yesterday I had my odometer turnover. It's one of those birthdays where you end up with a 0 at the end.
Wow. 30?
Yes, actually it's 30. Just celebrating the 30th anniversary of that.
Yeah. Well, I had many of those odometer resets or rollovers, and I did the 30 was, I guess the 30 was an interesting one, and the 40 was an interesting one, but they really weren't setbacks, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Next one will be 70. I want to keep going. I want to keep getting into the, 3-digit rollovers. That's my plan. And I remember when my dad lay very, very ill toward the end of his life, and he's like, he was getting weaker by the day, and I said, Dad, don't let them do it. Don't let those guys, don't let those lousy thugs cheat you out of any of your hard-earned paid-in Social Security. Don't let them do it. And what I meant was, just from a financial perspective, keep going. And it's incumbent upon us to just keep going. And John, let me say it this way. Many of us, and I've asked for prayers here at USA Prepares for the faculty and their families, and the students and their families. And I really meant it. And we had some very, 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 very dark days. Very dark days. And a number of our faculty have gotten new leases on life just recently. I mean, just recently. And when I say recently, I mean, within days and hours of right now. And I'm delighted to report that. And I'm hoping that the rest of our faculty gets the same leases on life, new leases on life that some of our faculty has. So things are on the upswing, getting better, and we are becoming healthier, and that's good. So we all need to become healthier. So class, let me ask one more time, please. Please continue to include your instructors and their families and your families in your prayers. It's working. I'm telling you, I've got a tear in my eye. It's working. I mean it. John, you've got a tremendous lineup for us today. Absolutely tremendous. And I was looking at thousands to close this year. Wow. I was talking to John Stadtmiller about that last night. He called me, and I said, yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about thousands to close this year. There are people who believe that things are getting better. You know, we've got a new guy in the White House, way better than the old guy, no question about it. The old guy was just inept. You know, the worst CEO in the galaxy. I'm talking about Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro. He's an international, intergalactic disgrace. The new guy, there seems to be this feeling that things are getting better. But yet, the damage that has been laid in front of us by corporate greed, corporate mistakes, greedy government, oppressive government, is coming to haunt us right now. Thousands to close this year. John, please help us.
I think I'm going to need to go back in and dig out the article where the Obama administration changed the way of calculating GDP, because they added this double seasonal adjustment, which was nowhere in any of my education. And the result of that is GDP has stayed positive, even though it's been very anemic. And the reason that's important is because 2 quarters in a row of negative GDP growth is what constitutes the start of a recession. And I'm pretty sure they did that for political reasons, to keep things, believable up through the election, which didn't go the way they wanted. But there's been many, many things behind the scenes, and this is one of them that suggests things are not as they seem. The actual headline on the article: the retail bubble has now burst. A record 8,640 stores are closing in 2017, and it's probably going to be more than that. We've even, we've talked about, many of the companies. Sears is already quietly closing more stores than they had announced. And it's just not a good time for the brick and mortar retail. Radio Shack is going down the hill again, and they're at the top of the store closing. Payless Shoes. It's just a long list. And then there's the consequences of all that. You have the employees that get laid off, that you're going to have a hard time, more than likely, finding another job.
I've got a comment, John. A few days ago, I happened to be in Springfield, Missouri. A few days ago, I happened to be in Springfield, Missouri. And I had about half an hour between stops. So I decided I would stop in at Sears, and I went to the mall, Battlefield Mall in Springfield, Missouri. Parking lot by Sears was absolutely, positively empty. I could have my choice of any but maybe 3 parking spaces, maybe 4. So I walked in, and there's a guy I went in the craftsman department end of the store, and there was one customer at another in the lawn and garden section, where they have lawn equipment and little riding mowers and stuff. There was one customer there with a salesperson, and the guy behind the craftsman checkout counter was all by himself, and there was nobody in the craftsman tool area, in the entire tool area, just me. I wandered around the store, and I found 2 other customers, senior citizens. They were looking at appliances. They were going to buy a washing machine. So there was one salesman there. That was it. Except for this one gal I met in the mattress department. I was walking past there, and I saw this clearance section for mattresses. Clearance section for mattresses. And they were all in these sealed bags. And it was like massive, massive price reductions, like 75% off. I'm thinking, how can that be? Well, some mattresses were over $2,000, and they were marked down. And I read the end of the tags, and I thought, what's with these? You know, they weren't in the typical, they didn't look the same as regular mattresses. They looked new and clean and all that. However, they were marked used. There's a section that said, you know, well, what is this mattress, the size and the condition, and used. Sears, let me say this very clearly. Sears, at the Battlefield Mall in Springfield, Missouri, is selling mattresses in sealed bags that are marked used. I remember from years ago that you couldn't sell a mattress. You couldn't put one on a garage sale or a yard sale and sell a used mattress. But I guess that doesn't apply anymore to Sears. So Sears was selling used mattresses. And I said to this gal next to me, both of us are middle-aged, and I said, wow, I'm kind of surprised, $800 for a mattress. And she said, yeah, and that's used. We're not talking about a huge California or king-size mattress. I'm talking about something that the size that we might have here at our farmhouse, you know, for an antique bed. Used mattress, you know, just under $1,000. New, it was, you know, in the $2,000 neighborhood, so it says. So I continued walking around. You know, I'm scratching my head thinking, I can't believe this. Number one, Sears is so desperate they're selling used mattresses. Two, there are no customers here. And so I happened to see something that caught my eye. They had a garden hose. Actually, they had two sizes, 100-foot and 50-foot. And I really, really like the Sears 50-foot lifetime warranty garden hose, or at least I used to. Brass ends, lifetime warranty. If anything ever happens to it, you bring it back and they'll give you a new one. So if you have a leak in your garden hose, you can get a new one from Sears. Let me tell you what happened when we come back. This is all germane to the conversation about stores closing. Captain John Regan's with us. EasyE33.org. EasyE33.org. We'll be right back. So class, I was at Sears in the Battlefield Mall in Springfield, Missouri, and I was looking at these really nice garden hoses. They're black and they're lifetime warranty, and they were priced pretty low. $19.99, I believe, was the price for the 50-foot lifetime warranty garden hose. But I looked at it and I thought, you know, mine has brass ends on it, very heavy brass ends, and it's probably 20, 30 years old right now, and it's still running fine. And these are heavy-duty commercial, and so you can leave them outside and the sun doesn't affect them as much, and what a great way to go. So I read the package and it said, and I was considering buying this. It felt a little lighter than my hose. The aluminum ends were way thinner, way less material than was used for the brass ends that I have on the, you know, the existing garden hose that we have here at the farm. And I like to keep these 50-footers right on the hydrants. We have several hydrants throughout around the farmhouse. So if there's a fire or something goes wrong, there's a hose attached with a nozzle and we can put it out right away. So it's a safety thing for us here at the farm because nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to help us. We're on our own. And so I thought I'd buy this, and I read the package and it said lifetime warranty, you know, with proof of purchase. So I put it down. I started to walk out, and the guy at the Craftsman counter right by the door, the exit door, you know, said, "Hey, can I help you?" And I said, "I got a question for you. Those hoses over there, the ones with the lifetime warranty, proof of purchase, that's going to be kind of hard to do because I know I'm not going to stick that receipt on that hose and have it with me all the time." And he goes, "I'll give you a new one. I mean, if anything goes wrong, you just bring it back to me, and I'll give you a new one." I said, "I'm not sure you're going to be here. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure Sears is going to be here." He goes, No, Sears, we're doing great. Sears is doing, we're making money. This store is making money. We're doing great." And I'm looking around. The parking lot is empty. It's always been empty for the last 5 years. There are 12 customers in the store. He's got enough time to talk to me because I'm the only guy within reach. There's no line at the register. It's just me, and I'm not even buying anything. And he's telling me that it's going to be okay because he's going to help me in the future. I'm thinking, I don't even think Sears is going to be here. John, do you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I think the lifetime warranty is for the life of the store.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I bought a dishwasher from Sears and I moved from one state to another. They're having a store closing, and they had their very, very best dishwasher on sale. They only had one of them. It was the display model. So I thought, okay, I'll buy that. And I bought it and had all kinds of problems with it. So I finally, after exasperation of years of trying to get this thing fixed by Sears Service, they just said, you know what, we don't have any more of these computer control boards. The only thing we can put is keep putting these used one in. And I'm sorry it's leaking on the floor. I'm sorry that it does this. I'm sorry, we can't fix it. So I went to bring it back, and they said, bring it back where you got it. And I said, well, I can't. You closed the store. And they said, well, we'll bring it back there. I said, you don't understand. You guys closed the store. It's not there anymore. And they didn't want to help me. That's Sears. That's Sears. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. That was what they used to mean. They don't mean it anymore. They don't even have it on the side of their store. They used to say satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Go look. Go look in front of the entrance of your Sears store and see if you see that. They don't mean it. And they tell you, even the store manager says, we don't work for you. We don't work for the customers. I talked to a Sears manager at a Sears store in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I said, hey, I used to work at Sears. Satisfaction guaranteed your money back. He goes, we don't do that anymore. We don't work for you. We work for the shareholders. We don't work for you. You're not the reason we're here. We're here so that the CEO of Sears can get a great big fat bonus based on share price. That's why we're here. That's the problem with Sears. They've lost their way. They've lost their way. And now I can't think of a reason to buy a Craftsman tool. Not one. Not one. I'm hoping that I can collect all my broken Craftsman tools. Not that I have many, but I hope I can find all the ones that I put away in these, drawers of the of the toolboxes, so that I can get them all and get them replaced before they do go out of business. Because when I bought them, that was the plan. The plan was to buy them and never have to worry about paying for another one, because they're guaranteed for life. And that would be, the hand tools, not the electrical powered tools. But I'm concerned about Sears, and I had this chat with Mrs. Finelli, and I've had this chat with some others as recently as yesterday, that Sears was a kind of a way of life, John. Back in the 1890s, if you wanted, you could buy a house. You could buy a house kit. I've seen houses that were assembled from the Sears Roebuck catalog. I've seen them. They were pretty darn nice, well thought out, well laid out, well constructed houses. You could buy a house at Sears. You could buy clothing, good, better, best. You could buy the quality you wanted based on the price you wanted to pay, and know that it was, even if it was not their best, even if it was just their good quality or their middle quality, it was still good, and you knew that. Captain John Regan's with us. TheFinancialStateOfTheUnion.com. TheFinancialStateOfTheUnion.com. We're at the news tab. John, I'm looking at this graph that you've posted a link to. It's red bars going horizontally. 2017 announced store closings. I cannot overemphasize how significant this information is about store closings. And it says a lot.
Let me put another link to this. Is the malls are not built just with cash. They're basically financed, and those are broken up into securities and bought as investments. A lot of those are purchased by, guess what, pension funds. So as these malls and commercial properties have problems, that's going to damage the investments that the pension funds have, and that's that's one of the legs of the pension funds. You also have bonds and stocks. As interest rates go up, bonds go down, and we've got these overvalued stocks that are going to crash at least 50% just based on what past corrections have done. And these based on how high it is now, this correction could be even 70 or 90%. So pension funds are getting ready to take a big hit, probably within the next year.
I'm looking at this graph, John, 2017 announced store closings that you've got linked on your website for today. And the number one store closer looks like it's going to be Radio Shack with 550 stores. And here's what I'm reading into this. Yeah, it's just a bar graph, horizontal bar graph. 550 stores, Radio Shack. Now, why? Who goes to Radio Shack? What do you need at Radio Shack? Well, years ago, when I was at the university, back in the 70s, I would go to Radio Shack and buy resistors, capacitors, transistors, integrated circuit board material. I would buy radio supplies in order to build radio circuits and other kind of circuits, oscillators and so forth. I don't go there anymore. I can get everything I need on the internet. But in addition to that, do young people who now are the same age that I was when I was at the university, are they building all kinds of cool things, experimenting and taking their try at being inventive? Are they doing that? I don't think so. I really don't think so. Not very much. So that could be one reason. And who do you go to for advice at Radio Shack? And does that person who works there have the advice and counsel today that they might have had years ago? You know, the hobbyists that would love working at a Radio Shack. I worked at a Radio Shack. I walked in to buy a computer and I had my coupon. The guy said that expired. I said, oh, well, I don't really want it if it's not 10% off. And he said, well, it will be. It will be 10% off when you start your job here. So the guy hired me on the spot. I was a customer. And because he thought I was knowledgeable enough to be a Radio Shack salesperson, you know, after attending the university, after graduating, and knowing a little bit about electronics, he thought that maybe I could be a salesperson. He hired me on the spot, and I got my 10% off on my boxed Radio Shack TRS-80 computer that I played with for, a few years. But, I'm looking at this J.C. Penney, or J.C. Penney as most people call it, 138 stores. It's a big deal. Kmart, 109 stores. Staples, 70 stores. CVS, a drugstore. How can you not have a drugstore succeed? 70 stores are closing. Macy's, 68. Sears, 41. Gander Mountain. Those Gander Mountain stores are the size of a Walmart supercenter. They're going to close 30 of them. John, I don't think this is good news. And what I'm seeing now is parking space in malls is now being rented out for carnivals and all kinds of things, because let's just get some money for this big parking lot that we've paved and that we're paying taxes on. That's what I'm seeing. Is that what you're seeing too?
I'm seeing the reports of that. I'm also seeing where malls are bringing in things like the supermarkets just to get somebody in the space.
Right. Not a good sign. However, I have decided this weekend I'm going to, because of the domestic terrorism attack on the Finelli family by the state of Missouri coming after us wrongly for $100,000 in unpaid sales tax. They demanded that we pay them $100,000. It's absolutely unfounded. We didn't even have sales that were justified. On sales of like $1,000, they wanted $100,000 in sales tax. These guys have lost their mind. They sent the highest level of legal employee after us to extract it. And I buckled down and I wouldn't do it. And we won. And I proved to him there is no justification. None. You don't tax out-of-state sales in Missouri. It doesn't happen. And there's no tax on bullion or numismatics. And that's what they wanted to come after us for. And they were wrong. Because of that attack, that merciless attack, that nonstop, in-our-face threat that went on for months, I refuse to pay sales tax if I can avoid it. I'm not saying evade it. I'm saying avoid it. So yesterday, I needed a cement mixer. And I could have gone to buy one at Harbor Freight, brand new, for a couple $100 minus my 20% coupon. $180 I could have bought, or less, $160. I could have bought a brand new, inexpensive Chinese-made cement mixer for a small project I have. And I could have sold it when I was done. Nope, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because I didn't want to pay the sales tax on it. So I found a used one. And I bought a used one for $90. And my MO now will be, if I can buy it used, which is now not too different from my old MO, if I can buy a used one and not have to pay the state sales tax and the county sales tax, I'm going to do it because of the misery that they put our family through. I'm not going to support the beast. And John Regan, I believe that is part of the reason why you're seeing some of these stores closing. The oppressiveness of these brick and mortar stores, the sales tax that you may not have to pay if you buy it online. You definitely don't have to pay it if you buy it used from an individual. And that's my plan. My plan is to buy it used from an individual and not pay sales tax because these guys are so lousy, so mean, and they attack us. And they build these dossiers on us. Who are these people? Who are these people who are so defective that they get these government jobs and hey, I can spy. I can look at these people. I can read their emails. I can look at what they say on their phone. I can hear what they say on their phone. We can watch them. We can investigate them. We can show up at their houses. We can go in with warrants. We can bash down their doors. We can pull guns on them. Boy, won't that be fun? Tell me that's not the mentality of the government employee. Tell me it's not, because I think it is, and I object to it, because I'm not built that way. You know, John, you and I have, in all the years that we've known each other, we have never said, hey, Vinny, hey, John, wouldn't it be fun? Hey, let's go snoop on this guy. He's a government employee. Let's go snoop on his house. Let's do that. Let's go listen in on his phone. Let's plant some bugs. Let's plant a wiretap. Let's plant a tracker on his car. Let's install something on his on our cell phone so we could, if we had one, so we could find out where he's going. Let's track him. Let's follow him. Let's get in the car. Let's get our friends to follow him. Let's look at his wife, his children. Let's see what they do, how they spend their money. Let's look at their receipts. Let's look at their credit card transactions. Let's go look at their bank account. Let's go open their mail. Let's go to the post office and let's read all their mail. John, we've never had even a thought like that until just this second when I'm thinking that's what these guys do to us. Were we going to talk about this today? Some things just hit my button, and I guess I hit my own button today. Okay, what's next, John?
Well, let's talk about the iPhone recycling. We've talked about resource limitations. The USGS has published reports, and we've got less than 20 years global reserves of items like silver, gold, zinc, lead. And when you go out to 25 years, it's even worse than that. And if you don't think this isn't being paid attention to in the boardrooms, Apple made the announcement that they're planning on producing new iPhones strictly from recycled materials. One little catch there is they don't know how to do that yet. And it even says that they know that the source materials are running out. And so if you don't think it's a serious issue, I think this article might change your mind. And the one underneath it talks about the problems with recycling, just the ordinary household materials that's been going on, and the problems of putting certain materials in the trash that make it difficult to separate out, or even damages what's being recycled to the point where it can't be used. And that's before you get to these more difficult items that would have to be taken apart. And in some cases, you'd almost have to just break it down to its original components and some kind of I don't even know the technology for it, to get the original materials out to manufacture a new version. So it's a big challenge, and apparently we're going to see that hit us much quicker than we thought.
I've got a comment on that, John. Over the weekend, I decided I was going to use some of our cast iron cookware, and I was going to make something called Italian beef. Our son came over with this prepackaged mix, and he took some beef in it and put it in a crock pot, an electric crock pot, and cooked it, and it was pretty good. First time I've ever had it. And I thought, I could do this. But I want to do it with cast iron, because as we go more and more off-grid and more towards solar, we're going to not be able to use that crock pot too often, the electric one. So I got this cast iron pot, and I was looking, it's kind of big. It's like a 7-quart, 8-quart, too big for what I was trying to do. So I did some research on the internet. I'll tell you what I found, and it's kind of disturbing. We'll be right back. So, class, I was making this Italian beef and a cast iron pot, 7 quarts or so. And I decided, it's kind of large for what I was trying to do. I was only making 3 pounds of beef, and I was going to cook it on the stove, the gas stove. And so I started doing some research about Dutch ovens. I thought that'd be better. Maybe a 3 or 4 quart Dutch oven would be great. So I was doing some looking around, and I was looking at vintage ones. Are vintage ones better than the brand new ones? And the new ones are not all that good. And there's only like 1 or 2 companies that make new ones in the United States. Most of them come from Asia. So I was watching this video on how cast iron is made today. Use cast iron cookware, and they take recycled steel. Recycled steel, and I'm talking about all kinds of recycled steel and recycled metal. And ferrous metal, and they heat it up at certain temperatures. And bottom line is they use banding, like, those straps that hold lumber together, that, those metal bands, they put that in there. And so my question is, what's going into this cookware that we might be using to cook our food? And of course, I have concerns about that. And that brings me to the real statement I want to make. During the 1930s and the 1940s, there were medical treatments that used gold, G-O-L-D. These little seeds about the size of a grain of rice. And they mixed them with Radon 222. And so these gold seeds were used to treat maladies and diseases like cancer, and they'd stick one where you have cancer, and assumedly they would help kill the cancer. Well, they had some of these seeds left over, but they were gold, and gold is valuable, so somehow they got melted down into more gold, and they contaminated other gold. So now we've got these radioactive 222, Radon 222 gold seeds that are melted in with other gold, and it ends up in the jewelry aisle. So now people are getting wedding bands made with this radioactive gold, and they're finding out that they have to have their fingers sliced off and other parts of their body sliced off because they become cancerous because of the radioactive gold that they thought was just a plain old wedding ring. So my question is, I'm concerned about recycling. That's what you were talking about, John. You were saying that, we have materials in our recycling system that may be really bad for us. Now, what about containers that may be used for hazardous chemicals or radioactive chemicals that go into these recycled materials? I'm concerned about it. I really am. I don't know the answer, but I'm concerned about it. Back to you.
Well, last week we had the tax filing deadline for the federal government and many of the states, and a couple of quick reports. One is that 44% of Americans won't pay any federal income tax, and that's really nothing new. And Tax Freedom Day for 2017 from the Tax Foundation has been announced, and it was yesterday, April 23rd, so nearly a third of your working life for 2017 is spent to support the government, and that's just for the spending, not the borrowing. If you include the federal borrowing, Tax Freedom Day is May 7th. And, of course, I talk about the unfunded liabilities, in which case there is no freedom for 2017 because it would take into somewhere until 2018 to just make up the difference to keep the unfunded liabilities from getting worse. So have a nice day.
You don't want me to comment on this, do you? I think it's much higher than that, John. I think we're paying even a greater amount of taxes than we actually believe, because there are other taxes that are, they're not really clear, like license plates, car registration, library fees, park fees, and of course there's sales tax. And then there's then just look at your phone bill, class. Look at your phone bill and see how many different taxes are on your cell phone bill. You won't believe it. I think the highest number is almost 20 different taxes on cell phone bills in some areas of the country. 20 separate line items. E911 is just one of them. John Regan, when we come back, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we'll talk about those power outages that happened last week.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I know people in the Missouri area who were without phone service for 3 days. It was a real problem for them. Trying to conduct business without having cell phone service, trying to conduct business without having internet, that's a real problem. It's a real problem. And what does that mean? No Netflix. That's what that means. So for some people, it could be catastrophic. Captain John Regan and I'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Captain John Regan. John, hour number 1, we left that saying we're going to be talking about the power outage. Could be caused by a geomagnetic storm, which we're experiencing as we speak.
When I first saw the reports of the power outages that were, I think the worst of them were in California, especially San Francisco. There was all this speculation, is it terrorism, cyber terrorism, And then Saturday morning, I got up and got my space weather report, and wow, we just had a pretty good geomagnetic storm, and this causes problems with electrical systems, telephone, internet, things like that. So it doesn't look like there was any party causing us a problem with all of that. It was actually just our good old sun, which, keep in mind, we're experiencing our magnetic field weaken over what it used to be. So it doesn't take as large a storm to start causing big problems. And the hint on that is the Carrington event. The sun doesn't have to do as big an injection with to damage our society as it did with what happened in the 1800s with the Carrington event. And again, back then it was just telegraph. Today it's so much of our lives, because without electricity, we just can't do anything. There's no communication, there's no transportation. With the computers down, nobody's going to be able to do anything. Our entire supply chain, the orders, the tracking, everything that goes on, requires electricity. So it's serious, and unfortunately, doesn't look like enough activities being done. At least now there's some attention being paid to the subject, but it gets back to preparedness. You need to be ready for being able to live like our ancestors used to. Vincent?
John, I'm looking at the map of the Pacific Gas and Electric outage. And, the reports originating from San Francisco and Oakland and Hayward, San Jose, San Leandro, Walnut Creek, many others. But in addition to the West Coast with Seattle and so forth, there was, of course, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Boston, and New York. Don't forget Chicago and other cities. So it was not just in one place at one time. It was in multiple places simultaneously. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, class, that it can happen. And I've been trying to get in touch with our son for 3 days. And I would call him, and he would say, and it would be that part of hello, just, and he would be disconnected. And it was so frustrating because I didn't know if he was okay. I didn't know if there was a problem. I didn't know. And that's that instantaneous society. Now, for me, it's a landline. I can pick up the landline, and that darn thing works 99.999% of the time. But cell phones. There was something that went on with Fidelity, and that's an internet provider, I guess, out that way. And something happened, and it messed them up. And I finally got a chance to talk to him. I said, hey, it could be a supply chain problem. There could be so many of these providers that need the same equipment at the same time. They can't get it. They can't get the equipment because it's not available. That could be what's happening. I don't know, but that's just a thought. So if you're dependent on communications, you ought to have a plan B. That's the point. Plan B, right, John?
And a plan C as well.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I have not stopped preparing. Just because we've got another guy as a CEO in Washington, I have not stopped preparing. As a matter of fact, I've increased my preparedness. And Bruce Kay and I are in an unofficial race. We haven't declared this race, but he and I are installing our battery banks. He and I are installing our extra solar panels, building our racks, forming concrete, and so it's kind of a friendly thing. We're comparing notes. It's not like a knockout dragout. We are comparing notes as to what's the best way to share information and to build and to talk about what we've done for our alternative energy system. That's what we're doing to keep both of our farms up and running in a power grid down situation. And just to make sure that we can keep operational. That's the plan. So he and I are going to talk about that coming up. He's an electrical engineer, and it's interesting how we keep feeding on each other's information. So we'll share that with you at some point, class. But that's where we are. John Regan, we have Mike in Maryland. Mike, welcome. You're on with Captain John Regan.
Excuse me, I got some sinus congestion right now. Before I go on my topic, can I recommend a guest for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, his name is Clyde Lewis, and he's out of Portland, Oregon, and he's a really good cutting edge. Robert Ray Bolt from Republic Broadcasting would be a good guest too. He's on Sunday nights at republicbroadcasting.org. He's a really cutting edge, does his research. His last name is Reybolt. Sunday night Eastern, 11 to 2 a.m. And
well, you do know, Mike, you do know that I am very, 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 very close friends with John Stadtmiller, the owner of Republic, right? Okay. So I'll talk to him. I talked with him last night.
Clyde Lewis at GroundZeroRadio.com.
I'll get those phone numbers and I'll from John Stadtmiller, and I'll make those calls.
Okay, thanks. And you got a great show, great guest as always. Listen, have you heard about Operation Gotham Shield? And is
yes.
It related to that? It's a test. It's a exercise for a simulated nuclear blast over New Jersey.
Right.
Operation Gotham Shield.
Right.
You and your listeners should check that out.
I have. John Regan, do you have any comments?
Yeah. Being that we're aware of it, I'm not too concerned about it. There's obviously other information that they collect that goes into the artificial intelligence that about the best we could do is speculate on. So other than being aware of it, like I said, I'm not too concerned.
So in other words, you don't think it could go live then, huh?
The more people are aware of it, the less likely they would go live with anything.
Okay, thanks. So I just wanted to get your input on it. Y'all keep up the good work. Thanks.
Mike in Maryland, thank you so much. Okay. John, about that test scenario, nuclear test scenario on the East Coast, we don't know much about it. We don't know if it's rumor. We really don't know. Bottom line is we don't know. But it is the kind of thing that could cause a panic.
Obviously they can't just set off a nuke without people knowing about it. And while we've seen some of these go live in the past, 9/11 was one of those. They were doing a simulation, and all of a sudden you've got basically the real thing happening. But nobody knew about that back then. And there's been several of those exercises that I believe just the public awareness of it has just kept it to an exercise level, not a going live level.
Right. What's next?
Let's tackle getting railroaded and never happened outside of recession, sort of related. The getting railroaded has a nice discussion about what's happened to railroads here in the United States and Canada over the last couple of years. Overall, it's a 2-year plunge in revenues of over 12%. And Canada's actually been in the best shape there. One just about broke even, down just under 1%. The other Canadian was down 6%. And other than Kansas City Southern, which was down just under 8%, the other railroads were down double digits. The worst one being Union Pacific at down 17%. And that's just, shows what kind of shape the economy is in, because the land, bulk of it travels by rail until it's picked up by the trucks. And then factory output tumbled in March, and this is something that has not happened outside of recession. They have a chart there that shows where the industrial production went down and the periods of recession. And again, just more evidence that this recession has started. The question is when will it catch up and everybody become aware of it?
John, we used to talk about, looking out the window at the restaurant in Springfield, and where all the cars, as we'd have these meetups. And the cars became fewer and fewer and fewer. Well, going into Springfield, I'd noticed that train after train, it was like we had to wait for these 100-plus car trains, and don't see them very much anymore. Now, I don't see them very much anymore. Seriously. Fewer trains. However, I did see a couple days ago train cars with wind turbine blades, and the wind turbine blades were, how long were they? 2 flat car beds long each for each section of the blade. Not the whole blade, just from the center pivot shaft to the outside tip. Two rail cars long. How long is that? A rail car is about 89 feet long. So over 200 feet long. John, very quickly, is that captain's log still available?
Yes, it is. And the special runs through the end of the month.
Okay. Can you give us a quick thumbnail about that thumb drive and tell us what's on it, what we can expect, how much it costs, how long it takes to get it, and why we should have it?
Well, that's a lot to do quickly. Basically, I'm building a library, and if you've not been in the industry, producing a book or a DVD takes a lot of time to get one of those out. Even when you have additional resources to have other people do some of the legwork, you just can't get information out quickly using those resources. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my information and making presentations out of it. So you've got an audio-visual presentation, and this includes the greatly expanded version of what I talked about in Knoxville, which has an update on the financial state of the union. 2 hours on the unprepared prepper, goes A to Z on a lot of items that most people haven't considered, and that if you're in a grid down situation, could very easily cost you your life. I've got the expanded version of my talk in Dallas. Does anybody really know what time it is, to give you a perspective of some of what I've been talking about here with resources and even putting in prophecy. How much time do we have left? And it's not a lot. And as I've been saying, that the resource problem is still a few years down the road, but our financial problem is going to hit a whole lot sooner. It's this USB drive also has a number of our interesting conversations we've had, as well as a PDF copy of my book, The Financial State of the Union, and it also includes the PDF reports from the EMP Commission. And my regular price on this is $50. Because of the expo, I gave a break of $40. There's $5 shipping, and if you're in Texas, there's sales tax. And I have no problem giving the USA Prepares audience, which has supported me for 5 years, this break. And once you order it, typically it ships the next day the post office is open. You get a tracking number on that. And there's also the stick comes in an envelope, inside the envelope, that has a serial number. And when you want to do an update, which you're not required to do, my plans are is to get at least 4 of these out a year, that when you do the update, you'll get a discount of half the going rate. Since the going rate is $50, half would be $25. And already this is about 4 gigabytes worth of information. It's several hours. I think it's about 6 hours right now of audio video. There's several more hours of just audio. So if you tried to put this on DVDs and CDs, it would take a small stack. So
Very good. Very good. Thank you for putting that together, John.
And you think of all the information that, we haven't had time to get to on the air, and that's just a small fraction from what I see, because there's so many things that requires much more time, and it's very difficult to talk about on the radio. You need to see some things. I'm working on getting that put together into more and more presentations so that you end up with basically an arsenal, not only to inform yourself, but to try to, like the rest of us, awaken friends and family that we care about.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Captain John Regan, I'll be right back right after these bottom of the hour commercial announcements. Captain John Regan's with us. John, I just, during the break, I was looking at this post. Police use murdered woman's Fitbit movements to show her husband lied about her final hours to cover up the fact that he murdered her to be with his pregnant mistress. What's happening is we now wear these, not we, but some people wear these biological bracelets to monitor their health activities, and they can be used by the government. So just keep in mind that your activities are being monitored, they're being transmitted, and they can be used either for you or against you. Just keep that in mind. John, what's next?
I've got a couple of computer-related bits of advice. One's called Tracking the Task. The other is Don't Believe Your Eyes. And the Tracking the Task, this is a Windows 10 tip. Many of you have had to get into Task Manager to shut down a program that's not working right, and you see a bunch of other programs running out there, and you have no idea what they're for. You don't know if some of them could possibly be malware sitting on your system that your software didn't catch. Well, this tip shows how you can add details to Task Manager's Process tab that tells you the exact path for the file, which helps you track down and determine if this is a valid process that's running. And the Don't Believe Your Eyes, back in the earlier days of computers, you had the ASCII character set, which just had a limited amount of characters that could be displayed. And then, I don't remember how long ago, but it's been a while, they upgraded that to Unicode, which allowed for just tens of thousands of characters, so they could put in things like Chinese and Arabic and all of that in the character set instead of just remapping the values. And a lot of you have figured out when you get an email and there's a link in it, you can hover over that link and you'll see what it's pointing to. And while that's good for seeing those that are obviously fake, this new attack takes advantage of the character sets outside of English, so they can put together what looks like a valid address. They can register that name, URL, that domain, and you see that it appears right. The example used in here is apple.com, but it's not Apple. It uses a different character set, but it's displayed to you as Apple. And so, if you get an email and you weren't expecting it, you may want to just go ahead and type in the address. If you've done something like a password reset where you're expecting an email and you get one of those long links, which lets you reset your password, those would be okay because you just initiated that action. You're expecting the email, plus you need to click on it in order to get to where you want to go. But if you get another email that you weren't expecting, and I've seen these from Amazon or supposedly Amazon or a bank or any number of places where they really want to financially do some harm to you. And so far, the ones I've seen that are fake, it's obviously fake domain names, but just a word to the wise. If you're not sure, just plain go in, type it in yourself. Vincent?
Good point. Excellent point. But we're getting lazy, and typing is, why do that, right? You're right. Type it in yourself. And it's a lot easier than fighting with the ramifications of what could happen should you become infected. What's next, John?
Well, how much gold? There's every so often you'll see articles suggesting that there's a lot of gold that was mined in antiquity, and that's going to come to our rescue any day now. And this article pretty much takes care of that. It uses the 2017 gold survey, and historical gold mine production is estimated to be about 187,500 metric tons, which at today's rates would make it a little under $8 trillion worth of gold that's ever been mined. I've seen some suggestions that this family has 400,000 metric tons of gold from antiquity that is going to come in and fix things. However, that's also attached to a New Age site that believes there's a space alien in orbit that won't let anything bad happen to the planet. I don't know why they're not doing anything about Fukushima, but that's another story. So there's not, there may be some hidden gold out there, but nothing near what some of these sites might suggest. A lot of some gold's been lost, some gold's just been squirreled away, but most of it has, actually with gold, most of it is still available. It may be in the form of jewelry or been used in production for something else. And about half of the gold is available for monetary use. And as we pointed out a few weeks ago, the world reserves are getting kind of thin, and unless they miraculously find other reserves or start mining asteroids, we're getting close to the end of additional supply for things like gold and silver.
I'm thinking about what you're saying, John, and we do use gold in manufacturing processes, central processing units, memory, and so forth. All we use gold because gold is malleable, can be drawn into very fine wires. It's excellent, has excellent properties for those particular devices like CPUs and memory. And I don't think we can manufacture chips, those kinds of integrated circuits without gold. I don't think so. Big problem. And recycling, how many people actually recycle their computers? And what has these memory chips in them? What has processors in them? Well, phones do. I'm looking at the items on the desk here at the studio, and a lot of the items contain gold. A lot of the items contain processors, even calculators. Which, remember Texas Instruments calculators? We used to buy them, and they'd last a few years, and we'd still keep them. And then there were these cheap ones from other countries, but they had processors in them too, and they're probably mostly in landfills right now, where it's impossible to go and recover the lost gold from the manufacture of them. So does gold disappear? Well, it doesn't disappear from the planet easily unless we send it into outer space. Other than that, it's still here, but a lot of it is in landfills, buried, and hard to get to. Harder to get to probably than mining gold. Big problem. We're careless as humans, absolutely careless. We throw things away, which we shouldn't. And silver, that's even worse. Silver we throw away like it's free. All the light switches, all the electronics that have switches in it, we don't even go looking for the silver. We just throw that in the landfill. So silver used once, when the product wears out, we throw it away. How many of our DVD players have we thrown away? How many of our Blu-ray players have we thrown away? How many of the old phones have we thrown away? Lots of them. We should really think. And one thing I'd like our government to concentrate on would be a better recycling plan, or corporate America. If you want to make something, figure out how we're going to get them back so they don't pollute the water and the air and the ground that we all share. Back to you, John.
Came across this item, and the link is entitled Sleeping Post Poop Hits the Props. And I've talked about before how you need to think about your sleeping arrangement once you don't have the utilities to depend upon. And you may have seen this in shows like, I remember the Muppets A Christmas Carol movie, where you see Scrooge's bedroom, and he's got these, 4-poster bed, the tall posts, and you have the curtains, which helps keep the heat in, because you're going to have limited fuel for heat. And I found this product. It's called the bed tent, and it's made in different sizes all the way up to king-size beds. So you would put your bed inside this, and it's not as tall as the poster beds, but you've now got an enclosure, and if you close the sides, that would probably be your wintertime configuration with that and the windows closed to retain your heat. In the summertime, when you're worried about things like mosquitoes, which can bring you some very nasty diseases now, you can close the sides, open up the windows, which have a mesh, and then you could have a breeze come through from the head to the foot of this bed tent. There's various ways of accomplishing the same thing, but this is one of those that's pre-built. It's not very pricey, ranges from just over 100 to close to 200, and they have a discount going on right now, which price depends on the bed size.
Yeah, and if you decide that you want to have an old bed like we have here, the farmhouse, poster beds, and you might be able to get them very, very inexpensively like we have. Ours have been in the family for, 75. We're back with Captain John Regan, final segment. John, what's next?
Well, let's go back to hour number 1, the 2008 radiation link. There's also another link, radiation this week, in the Fukushima section. I don't think we're going to have time to get to that.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised about some counts from 2008. Keep in mind, Fukushima happened in 2011. Mm-hmm. So this is before that. We had radiation detectors turned on. And the source of this radiation is expected to be from nuclear reactors and nuclear weapons. Now, we've not had above-ground nuclear weapons tests for decades, but keep in mind that these radionuclides, many of them have, tens to hundreds to thousands to even tens of thousands of years of half-life, where half of them degrade to another element, and then that element may or may not be radioactive itself and have its own half-life, which can, vary widely. And I don't have the nuclear physics background to get into that myself. My experience was with the planning of using nuclear weapons. But what I thought was stunning here, the total counts per minute when you added them up, the high gamma count in 2008 was in New York City of just over 500,000. The high beta count, 4.6 million in Nashville, Tennessee. And again, that was before we got the additional gift of Fukushima. And if I recall correctly, just one of the spent fuel pools that went up, and we discovered, a few years later that happened right there in that first week, had enough radiation that it was more than all the above nuclear tests combined. So we're highly irradiated, and unless some new technology or science is invented, we don't have a way of handling it. Vincent?
Right. All right. And our robots can't even get close enough to help us out. We don't have the technology. Very, very sad. Very, very sad. And the people who built this technology and approved this technology, I'm talking about at the highest levels of General Electric and other companies, including the boards of directors, should all be in prison. In my opinion, all be in prison for building something for which there is no solution, unleashing this on mankind without a solution. They had to know. They had to know. There had to be some engineers in the boardroom saying, "Well, guys, look, are you kidding? There's no answer for this." It's kind of like saying, we've got this radioactive waste. Let's put it on the launch pad. Let's blast it out into outer space. Let's just send it out. And everybody goes, "What a great idea!" And then one guy says, "Hold it. What if the rocket fails and just falls over right on the launch pad, and we irradiate Florida and the rest of the planet?" Maybe that's not such a good idea, boys and girls. There are people who say those kinds of things. But anyone who ignores that kind of advice, counsel, and question, and does the kind of damage that's been done to this planet by companies like General Electric should be in prison. Just my thoughts. John, do you think that that's too strong of a statement?
We should round them up and invite them to spend the night in one of the Fukushima reactor buildings.
Yeah. Heck, not even the night, just 20 minutes. 20 minutes would give them a dose of radiation that would have their skin peeling off their frames. But that would be a fast death. Within hours, maybe minutes. Captain John Regan, thank you so much. This class is so much more information at thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, news tab. Please consider perusing it and sharing with friends and family. John, your work is invaluable. I appreciate it. All these years we've spent together, and I'm looking forward to many, many, many more. Cass, we'll see you tomorrow.